Today we're talking about something huge, a chain reaction really. It starts with our warming planet, which is totally reshaping the natural world. And guess what? That whole chain reaction ends up right on our dinner plates, threatening the food we eat. So yeah, let's get right into it.
Okay, just look at this. Seriously. On the left, you've got this lush green forest back in 2002. Then look at the right. That's the exact same place just 2 years later. It's a wasteland, a ghost. So what on earth could do that? And do it so fast? Well, the culprit was a massive drought, but it was a drought that was supercharged by climate change. And this isn't just a story about some trees in New Mexico. It's a wake-up call. It's a perfect preview of the incredible pressure our planet's systems are facing right now.
So before we go any further, let's just make sure we're on the same page about what an ecosystem even is. Think of it like this giant, complicated web. You've got all the living things, the biotic stuff, like plants and animals, and they're all interacting with the non-living things, the abiotic stuff, like the water, the soil, the sunlight. The key thing to remember? Everything is connected. You pull on one string and the whole web shakes.
Right. So if everything's connected, what happens when you change something major, like, say, the entire planet's climate? The whole web has no choice but to react, and it is reacting. Let's take a look at how nature is already responding to all this stress.
You know, for pretty much every species on Earth right now, it boils down to two simple choices. Imagine your house is getting way too hot. What do? Well, you either pack up and move somewhere cooler, or you figure out a way to adapt and live with the heat. And we're seeing both of those things happening right now, all over the world, on a scale that's, well, it's just massive.
So let's talk about the moving option first. All across the globe, animals and plants are literally on the march. They're chasing the cooler temperatures they need to survive. A perfect example is this butterfly, the Edith's checker spot. Its populations in the south, they're disappearing. But the ones further north, or way up at higher elevations, they're doing great. They are quite literally heading for the hills and for the poles just to stay alive.
And this isn't just about insects, not by a long shot. Check out this map. It shows how birds are changing where they spend the winter. The purple finch is a great example. It's now wintering more than 400 miles farther north than it did just a few decades back. They're basically just following the weather, chasing the seasons as they shift.
And it's not just on land or in the air. This great migration is happening in our oceans too. We're seeing commercial fish stocks, like the American lobster, moving their entire home range northward. On average, they've shifted about 120 miles. Think about that. This is a full-blown, planet-wide reorganization of life, and it's all happening right now, right in front of us.
Okay, so moving is a huge part of the story, but it's only half of it. The other way nature is responding is, well, it's all about timing. The basic, fundamental clocks of the natural world are being completely reset. And that's causing a whole other set of massive problems.
And this brings us to this really important idea called phenological mismatch. I know, it sounds super technical, but the idea is actually pretty simple. Picture this. A bird flies thousands of miles for its spring migration. It's expecting to find a buffet of juicy caterpillars to feed its newborn chicks. But, spring came early this year. The caterpillars have already turned into butterflies and flown away. The all-you-can-eat buffet is closed, the timing is off, the food is gone, and a critical link in that web we talked about has just snapped.
This right here is the perfect and kind of tragic example of that danger. Look at the snowshoe hare. Its survival depends on that white winter coat to blend in with the snow. But its internal body clock, the one that tells it when to change for a color, is now out of sync with reality. The snow is melting earlier and earlier, but the hare is still white. So you end up with a bright white animal on a brown, muddy background. It's basically a sitting duck for any predator that comes along.
So, where do you think the risk is greatest? The obvious answer seems to be the poles, right? That's where it's warming up the fastest. But surprisingly, the real danger zone is the tropics. And here's why. Tropical species have spent millennia evolving in super stable climates. Their comfort zone is tiny, so even a small shift in temperature can push them over the edge. Meanwhile, critters in places like North America or Europe are already used to huge seasonal swings, so they have a little more wiggle room.
Okay, so all these disruptions we've been talking about, they're not just happening in some far-off rainforest or deep in the ocean. These exact same pressures, animals moving, timing getting all messed up, they are now showing up right on our doorstep because they're starting to hit our farms and, by extension, our food supply.
Now, the relationship between climate change and our food is Well, it's complicated. There's this weird good news, bad news situation with carbon dioxide. The good news? Plants breathe CO2, so more of it in the air can act like a fertilizer, making some plants grow bigger and faster. But, and this is a huge but, here's the bad news. The same studies show that these supersized crops are way less nutritious. They're lower in protein, zinc, iron, all the stuff we need. So we might get more food, but it's kind of like plant junk food. And then you have the simple, brutal impact of heat itself. Take a look at this map of the 2003 European heat wave. Temperatures were only about 3.6 degrees Celsius above normal, but that was enough to cause crop yields in places like Italy to plummet by more than a third. But here's the really scary part. Projections show that by the year 2100, a summer that hot won't be some once-in-a-lifetime disaster. It'll just be an average summer.
And this is where we get into a really critical and kind of vicious feedback loop. Because it turns out that agriculture isn't just a victim of climate change. It's also one of the biggest causes of it. The way we grow our food leaves an absolutely massive footprint on our planet.
And not all food is created equal when it comes to climate impact. Not even close. This chart makes it so clear. To produce 1 kilogram of wheat, you generate about 1 kilogram of greenhouse gases. Okay, but to produce 1 kilogram of beef, you're looking at over 30 times that amount. A huge part of that is methane from the cows themselves, plus all the land and resources it takes to raise them.
The sheer scale of agriculture's footprint is it's hard to even wrap your head around. Just look at this number, 40%. That is how much of the Earth's land, not counting ice sheets, is used for our farms, for pastures, or for crops. Almost half of the usable land on the entire planet is dedicated to feeding just one species, us.
And it's not just the land. Our food system is incredibly thirsty. 70%. Let that sink in. 70% of all the fresh water that humanity uses goes to one thing: irrigating crops. That is a staggering amount of pressure on what is probably our most precious and limited resource.
Okay, so let's put it all together. What does this all mean for our future? You've got a natural world that's already under incredible stress, and you combine that with a food system that has a massive impact of its own. When you mix those two things together, well, the stakes for all of us become unbelievably high.
This map is a projection. It's showing us how our ability to grow food is likely to change by the year 2080. You see the green bits up north? They might actually see some benefits. But then, look at the huge swaths of the globe painted in that deep, dark red. Those are the tropics and subtropics, and those regions are staring down the barrel of potential crop losses of 50% or even more. And now, here's the part that's just devastating. This next map shows you where the people who are already malnourished live today. And what do you see? It's an almost perfect overlap with the last map. The places that are already struggling the most with hunger are the exact same places that are going to get hit the hardest. It's a crisis being piled directly on top of an existing crisis.
And don't forget that other problem we talked about. It's not just about having less food, it's about the quality of that food. So we're facing this brutal 1-2 punch. Less food available overall, and the food we can grow is less nutritious. That's a double whammy for the health of people who are already the most vulnerable.
So yeah, we're left facing a challenge that will define our future. That intricate web we started with, the one connecting our climate, our ecosystems, and our food, it's being stretched, and it's getting dangerously close to its breaking point, which leaves us all with one enormous question to answer. As our planet keeps changing and our population keeps growing, how are we going to choose to feed ourselves?